Brazilian celebrity Anita recently did an interview in English, and I have to say I was actually pretty impressed with how she spoke. It really did have a very natural feel. But if you are a Portuguese speaker learning American English,
or really anyone learning American English,
there are a couple of sounds from this interview that I think would be helpful to review. They include these sounds here. And if you're not sure about what these actually mean, that's okay. Let me show you. Oh, and if you have a favorite song by Anita, by the way, let me know in the comments. Up first is the O sound, like in go or home, that O. Now, it's a sound that English learners tend to exaggerate because they learn it's a diphthong. They think you have to make these exaggerated movements with your mouth. But the reality here is that when you make an O sound, it doesn't need to be so crazy. It's just oh, mouth slightly closing, lips a little bit round but not too much. What I often see is students finishing this O sound with a very tight ooh. It's like oh, but that's a little bit too tense, a little bit too much. Let's do some comparisons. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Anita and how native speakers would say the same phrase in American English.
1 year ago.
3 years ago, a couple years ago, but not too long ago, a few months ago.
What I'm hearing is a sound that it feels like it's getting stuck in the back of the throat a little bit. Right around here, not enough air is coming through. Also, in terms of placement, it feels like we're more up here towards the top of the throat versus the bottom of the throat. Or how about this phrase? You know?
You know?
Next up is the schwa sound. Never heard of it? Think of the sound that you make when you're thinking. A little tip for this sound is you want to push your tongue a little farther forward, like against your bottom front tooth, to try to open up in the back to let more air through.
So she's dumb.
Sounds dumb. Dumb. Dumbest idea ever.
Again, one difference between hers and these other native speakers is that she's blocking off some of that air, most likely because the back of the tongue may be a little bit too high or a little bit too back. Also, her throat might be a little bit too tense. Another potential reason that this is causing a problem is that link between the vowel and the letter M. It's like, What a lot of people find is that when they have a consonant after the vowel, that consonant actually has an impact. It changes how that vowel sounds. So if you think that your schwa sound is kind of sounding like hers, here's an exercise you can do. Take a word like sun. Let's break it into some smaller parts. First, just say the schwa sound. Then add one of the letters. We can add the S. It's like s, and then add the rest of the word. So for instance, sun, sun. Ideally, all of those vowels should sound the same in each of those versions. So if you record yourself and you listen and you hear that maybe one of them is okay or two of them are okay, but maybe that third one's not quite the same, it helps you identify where the trouble is. Also, this schwa sound appears in other words. For instance, like the word other.
Other singers.
Other than that, each other, and other.
One letter you want to be really careful of is the letter L. For Anita, it's giving her some trouble when it appears after a long vowel. There's sounds like the E in steel or the A in sail. Steel, sail. What do you notice about these words? After you make the long vowel, it's like the E or the A, you're going to add a second sound, this like in a word like fall or in a word like bull. Listen again and see if you can hear it. Steel, sail. Compare these and how Anita pronounces the word feel.
That's how they feel.
People feel better.
Feel less anxious, feel alive.
Today, I feel like
The last sound I want to take a look at is the sound, like in best or get. For this sound, you want your tongue to take up a lot of space in your mouth. So you're going to raise the back, the middle, and the front a little bit higher. Also, your mouth is going to be relatively closed. Straighten your lips a little bit. They don't need to be round. So again, like in a word like next, or in step. Another trick as well, push your tongue a little farther forward against your bottom front tooth to again open up air in the back of your mouth and in your throat. Compare how Anita says next step to some native speakers.
Okay, next step.
The next step.
The next step.
The next step.
Oh, I. If you say vowels like that, you will not sound natural in American English. Here is why. These vowels are called diphthongs. Diphthongs basically are sounds that consist of two vowels that come together. Your language has them and so does English, but there's a couple reasons why they're going to sound different in American English. Firstly, because American English doesn't actually always treat them as two sounds, but as a single sound. And some of you are going to attack me and say,
No, Geoff,
You're wrong.
it's always going to be two sounds.
It's a diphthong.
but what I would say is that you want to be careful in American English because what a lot of students do is they use the corresponding sound from their first language, which often is ending with a much higher placement and sounding a lot tenser. A. This exists in a lot of other languages, but it often sounds more like a. Notice how I'm really getting some dramatic movement in my jaw here. When I say dramatic movement, I mean I'm moving it like a couple centimeters, maybe. But I'm also finishing with a much tenser sound too. A. American English really just wants that A sound. Try even just saying it 3 times. A.
Like, hey, get over here.
Now, I did mention the word placement. What exactly does that mean, though? Placement refers to where you are projecting sounds from when you talk. For a lot of languages, the placement tends to be higher, whether talking from like right up here in the nasal area, or maybe talking back here, kind of top of the throat, back of the mouth. But American English wants to come from a lower position, almost like you're imagining your mouth is right here. One of the ways you can immediately check yourself to see if you can even do a lower placement is take a vowel sound. Let's use the A as an example and see if you can send it down 5 times. A. In general, English is going to favor those lower ones. A general note I see with students when we do an exercise like that, wherever they end up on about the 3rd one or the 4th one down, that tends to be a pretty good spot for American English placement. However, having a low placement by itself is not enough to achieve a natural sounding accent. One of the big differences between American English and other languages, and even other types of English, is the amount of air that is passing through your chest. We want to engage our diaphragm, which is located right around your stomach area. For instance, if you breathe in and then you exhale with a sh sound, one of the things you notice that happens there is you can feel your stomach gradually contracting. We talk more about breath in this video, but for our purposes here, we want to try to feel our diaphragm get a little bit tenser as we talk, and that'll be a sign that we're engaging our diaphragm, because otherwise you're probably talking through your lungs, and that's giving you much less airflow when you speak. Hey. You can hear when I engage my diaphragm, I get a lot more resonance, warmth, and a lower pitch. Let's now look at some of the most common words for some of the most common diphthongs. A. Play. Day. Place. Same. Game. They play the same game daily. Tonight. Life. Right. Wow. Might. Tonight's life might bite. Oh. The. So. Over. No. Don't go over so openly. Oi. Point. Noise. Toilet. Boil. boil, poison, poison. Noisy toilets boiled poison. Noisy toilets boiled poison. What's that even mean? Ow. Now. Now. Around. Around. How. How. Power. Power. Out. Out. However, the power's out now. However, the power's out now. Window. Mexico. Even Home Depot. Why are so many of my students mispronouncing these words? Are you making the same mistake? Let's take a closer look at the O sound in American English in this video. I strongly recommend that you record yourself and compare how you sound to how I sound here. Window, window, Moscow, Moscow, Mexico, Mexico.
Minimal pairs.
Low, law, so, saw, crow, crawl, choke, chalk. Sometimes doing words by themselves is easy, but seeing them in sentences is a whole other story. So let's take a look at some practice sentences. The coast was just below Mexico. The coast was just below Mexico. Here are also some quick spelling rules for the O sounds. That way you know what to look for. Firstly, the letters OW can make this sound, like in below, in crow. Also the letters OU, for instance, like in dough. Or the TH version, though. Learning something new? Let me know by subscribing. Just the letter O by itself can also work, like in so or no. Also look out for the letters OA, like in boat or in loan.
Let's actually take a moment to look at that O-A-N combination because that can be a little tricky.
What some students do is they add a vowel sound between that O sound and the N, saying something like lowen, lowen. Can you hear that? But it's really supposed to be more like loan. Some more examples. Loan, shown, bone, known. Another combination that can be a little tricky is when you have the O sound plus an L, because typically you're going to get a dark L sound. Not sure what a dark L is? Be sure to take a look at this video. Here are some example words. Coal, roll, stole. Do you hate TH sounds? I have some things that are going to make them a lot easier to say though. You may have been taught to pronounce the TH sound with the tip of your tongue, right there, stuck in between your teeth. It's like, which works. But the problem is there are some combinations in English that actually become very difficult to say when your tongue is stuck in that middle position. So we're going to go over two alternatives that are going to make your TH sounds a lot smoother across words. The first is that you want to put the tip of your tongue against the back of your top front tooth. So instead of th, you want to have more th. We're talking centimeters of difference, but it's going to have a very big impact on your sound. Thick. Then, this, thin, with the, math and, bathar, loathe it. This is also going to help link specific sounds as well. For instance, that horrible
H plus S sound, like
it just kind of slides up the back of your front tooth. So like paths, baths. If you're still doing that lower position like paths, or like baths, like it's
a lot harder.
For the second alternative though, the reality is that the TH sound can also be made with the tip of your tongue against your bottom front tooth, in the middle of your tongue making contact higher. Booth, booth, with, path, path, there. The other reality too is that sometimes the TH sound actually just kind of disappears. You can see that these sorts of reductions are extremely common when an N sound comes before a TH. And then, can they,
In there. In there.
It's hard with the TH because a lot of languages don't have it. But once
Wagner Morris speaks English, he interviews in English, so I have the question, can he pronounce all the sounds for the letter O? Hey guys, this is Geoff from Fluent American again. And one thing with O sounds, like all vowels in English, is that there's many different ways that they can be pronounced. All right, let's get right into it.
This one
Done.
thing I have ever done is
Considering.
especially considering
Months.
2 months.
This time, the O sound is making what's called a schwa, which we've talked about in more detail here. But the schwa sound is the most common sound in American English pronunciation, but it's also the most relaxed. It's the sound you make when nothing is tense in your face, you're just kind of in a neutral expression, your lips are relaxed, your mouth's relaxed. It's just like this. The key thing though for placement is that you want this to be low in the throat and relaxed. Can you hear a difference between how I pronounced the schwa sound and how Wagner pronounced it? Months. You'll know it's too tense if, for instance, you're hearing like an ah type sound, ah. For instance, if instead of saying one, you say like one. Another way that you can check yourself to see if the placement is right is do this. Hold the vowel sound longer. So for instance, say one. As you're holding that vowel, try to note where you feel the vibration strongest. So for instance, when I say one, I really feel that down here. But if you say it like one, when I feel that vibration, I'm feeling it a lot higher. I'm feeling around here. So just hold the vowel sound longer and see where the vibration feels strongest. Try to get it low in the throat. Most.
The most
global. So our second O sound is the same as the letter O. This is a diphthong. You're going to start with your mouth wide. It's going to make kind of like an sound. Back of your tongue's a little bit high. Rest of your tongue's pretty low. And then you're going to close your mouth and your tongue's going to lift a little bit. It's like oh. Notice too that at the end you can have small round lips, though it's not entirely necessary to make them too round. In fact, that's where I see a lot of students struggle, is they make that O sound too tense at the end. So they'll end with like an oh. You're probably feeling that more in your jaw or maybe even the top back of your mouth, when again, you want to be feeling this more in your throat. So if you're noticing that you're pronounced like an O type sound, one thing you can do is maybe cut off the last part of the vowel, take off the last couple milliseconds, because most likely you're starting with a better position, just like an and then just kind of finishing that off a little bit softer. Oh. Speaking of placement, I'm definitely hearing like mo, po, like when Wagner's saying it. See if you can notice it here. And to me, if I'm trying to imitate that sound, I'm getting my placement like way up here and towards the back of my mouth. And again, that's just not quite the right spot for that more natural sound. So instead of doing like a mo, po, more mo, po, hear how much more air is making it through my throat. And in fact, one way you can try to correct this or to adjust your placement if you're doing a similar thing is to start tense and then see if you can drag the sound down. So for instance, ooh, so again, ooh, and again, all I'm doing is I'm just sending that sound down my throat, so that way I can try to get it a little bit lower. Another sound that the letter O can make is like an oo sound. You can see this, for instance, in a word like to, or doing. Do you hear some differences there? So instead of like ooh, you again want more ooh. Your lips can be a little bit round, though they don't have to be so round like this. You know, they don't have to be quite that tense. Other key things for the mouth position too are you want the back of your tongue to be high and the front of your tongue to be down. So again, it's not ooh, it's more oh.
If you're learning something, by the way, let me know by liking and subscribing to the video.
The last O sound I want to talk about is the ah sound. For instance, like in a word like stop or in popularity. This is a sound that many of my students struggle with for several reasons. The first reason is that they may be more used to British English pronunciation, where instead of an ah sound, it's more like an os, like pop instead of pop. Other reasons too, again, are going to be about placement. So you may again be producing this sound more from the back of your mouth and a little bit too high, like a pa, as opposed to a pa. Hear a difference between those? The reality is just lots of students are not aware that the ah sound is pronounced differently in American English. The other difficulty with the ah sound is that most other languages have this. In fact, let me know in the comments what language you speak and if your language has an ah sound. The problem is that the placement's different. So again, in American English, it's low in the throat, whereas in other languages, again, it's coming from up here. So if you're saying a word like popularity or popularity, then again, it's not quite the sound you're going to hear in most of North America. The last thing I want to mention about the O sound is you may be mispronouncing it at the end of words.
Some of the easiest sounds to mispronounce in American English are the same sounds that exist in your first language. Stop, watch, lock. It's the ah sound. What a lot of students are doing is using a sound that has a higher placement with less airflow. Stop, watch, box. When making the ah sound, you want lots of air to come through your throat, and you also want your tongue to make sure it is down towards the bottom of your mouth. What tends to be hardest with the ah sound is linking it to consonants. Ah, ba, box. Ah, ha, hot. Ah, na, knock. A quick note, some of these you will hear people pronounce also with an aw sound. Calm, calm. On. The sound that most confuses students with the ah sound is the sound, your schwa. Ah, la, lock, look. Ah, ba, bog, bug. Admit it, you're afraid to say the word beach, but don't worry, I want to help you out. This E sound exists in most languages, but it's a little different in American English because you're going to project from a lower position and you want more air to move through your throat. To practice this, try to do like an E sound from your first language and then send it down 5 times. For instance, a lot of languages have something more like an E sound, so let's send that down 5 times. E, 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 E. E. In general, in American English, you're going to use more of those lower registers. E, E, E. The other major difference will be that American English has more breath. So one thing you can try doing is try to take a deep breath in, but keep your shoulders down. And then exhale and try to get that breath moving through. E, E, E. Now you may be able to achieve a natural E sound, but there's a problem still because when you add consonants, sometimes your E sound may shift. Seen, seeing. Hear the difference there? Try not to add a vowel before consonants. Seeing, seeing.
Seeing.
Seen, seen. Can you hear the difference there? The first time my placement stays low, but then the second time my placement rises because maybe I'm using a higher placement for my end sound. Let's just say the vowel 3 times, making sure the vowel stays the same each time. E, E, E. Now some words. E, E, E. E, C, seen. E, E, E. E, D, deep. E, E, E. E, B, beach. A sound that the E is commonly confused with is the short I sound, or eh. Try to pronounce these words differently. Each, itch, eat, it, read, rid, beat, bit. Too soon, too soon.
Hear a difference?
The second one sounds more natural, but it might look different than you expect. A lot of people, when they go into American English, they think the oo sound needs these really round lips, but the reality is that you can actually have straighter lips, and it's actually going to help you get a more natural sound. When people round their lips, they also tend to raise their placement and get really tense, leading to an ooh type sound. Our goal, as always, is to try to get as much air through as possible. Take a nice big breath in, and on the exhale, try to say ooh 3 times. Ooh, ooh, ooh. In addition to that, we're trying to get a low placement with a low projection. Try to take your ooh sound down 5 times. Ooh, 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 ooh. Do, two, sue, blue.
How about words that have ooh in the middle?
Soon, tooth, rooms, food, You want to be careful with these because some people are adding a vowel sound before the consonant. Soon, suin, room, ruum, dune, doin. However, there is one situation where you do want to add a vowel before the consonant, and that is when the oo is followed by an L. Rule, cool, fool, school. Rule, full, cool, school. Make sure you're not adding like an E sound before your oo. Two, pollute, pollute, duke, duke. But perhaps the biggest point of confusion with the oo sound is with the sound. Booth, book, luke, look, tooth, took. Good, should, would, could, cook. Can you say that sound like in these words? Let's take a closer look. In fact, the word look has it too. This sound where the back of your tongue is high and the front of your tongue is down. Something else that can be helpful with this is making sure that your lips do not round. You want them to be straight. So like In fact, if you're still having a hard time with this, you can even try smiling a little bit because that's going to help make sure that your lips stay tense enough. Good, would, could, cook. Now the problem with this vowel is there's a couple other ones that's commonly confused with. Book, buck, took, tuck, would, was. If you're finding that schwa sound to be difficult, take a look at our earlier video. The other sound is commonly confused with is the oo sound. Hood, who, took, tool, should, shoe, took, tuck, tooth, would, what, woo, should, shuck, shoe. The cookbook I took isn't good. Good. Took isn't good. Cookbook. The cookbook I took isn't good. One sound you want to be very careful of is linking this with a L. It's not going to shift, unlike with the oo sound. Pull, pull, full, fool. Would you say this car is fast or fast? The S sound in American English doesn't exist in a lot of languages. It's when you basically put the front of your tongue and the back of your tongue down, and the middle of your tongue goes high. Notice you won't be able to see my throat because my tongue's so high. Ah, ah. Compare that to the ah sound, where you should be able to see farther back. Ah, 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 ah. Now we do have some good news. There's only one letter in American English that makes this sound, and it's the letter A. For instance, in these words, ah, pa, past, ah, fa, fast, ah, ca, cat. However, you want to make sure that you're not pronouncing an ah sound. Add, odd, rat, rot, sack, sock. But you also really want to make sure you're not making an sad, said, past, pest, laughed, left. Notice that when I'm making that S sound, my lips tend to be straighter. The back, middle, and front of my tongue are also going to be higher to make sure that I'm blocking more air in my mouth. Sad, said, he's sad. Bag, beg, she begged me for a bag. Slapped, slept, I slept until she slapped me. Man, pan, can.
After more than 12 years of teaching English,
I think I finally found the sound that is the most difficult to pronounce in American English pronunciation for English learners. Plan, sand, man, can. It's this ass sound that links with the letter
N.
It's different than a normal ass sound. Sad, sand, mad, manned, tack, tank. What's often happening when this ass sound comes before a nasal is that your tongue actually slides back. You still need the back and the front of your tongue down, but that middle of your tongue is going to be raised and everything's going to shift this way. Right before the nasal, that N or M or NG, you want to do a heavy breath out of your nose. So like man, can, plan.
If you find that you say the letter N like
well, that's a sign your placement's too high. You want to get more of an sound. See if you can take your N down 5 times, like You want those lower ones. So it's not man, it's man. The other thing is making sure enough air passes through. If you're doing a very tense ass sound like well then you're not going to let enough air pass through and it's going to sound too tight. You want more of an like man, plan, sand. The other challenge with this sound is making sure it doesn't turn into an sound, like in best or get. Tan, ten, rank, wreck, pan, pen, sand, send. I plan to send the man to bed. Man to bed. Plan to send. I plan to send the man to bed. You know, there's so many letters in English that are actually dependent on one vowel sound. F, L. You need to firstly have relatively straight lips. The back, middle, and front of your tongue all need to be high. You're trying to block air in your mouth. Close your mouth a bit. You can straighten your tongue so it touches the sides of your teeth. And then lastly, you want to make sure you're getting enough air through your throat. The problem with the S sound is it's often confused with other vowels. Lit, let, lat, late, sit, set, sat, sate. They read, that is dad left late. Left late. They read. They read, that is dad left late. Test, taste, west, waste, less, lace. Ray, rain. Do you hear how the vowel shifted on that last one? Rain.
What many English learners are doing
is they're taking the A sound and changing it right at the end. We don't want to make the move too strong. It's not A, it's A. Our goal is going to be say the A sound with a more open mouth position. Your mouth can be wider, the front of your tongue could be a little high, and the back of your tongue is down to let as much air pass through as possible. A, ray, rain. A, pay, pain. A, lay, lake. When we add an L sound, it's going to break into two parts. Pay, pale, ray, rail, say, sail. With the A sound, you also want to be careful when it finishes with a sound like the letter N, because what a lot of students do is they get very, very tense and tight and block the air at the end. Rain, rain. The A is also very commonly confused with another vowel sound. Sail, sell, whale, well, tail, tell, pain, pen, go, gaw. Oh.
What's wrong with that?
Well, actually, when you listen to a lot of native speakers say the O sound in American English, you're going to see this. Oh. Notice that my lips actually go straight. I know a lot of people are taught
That you're going to start with your mouth wide and then close into this small round O shape. O.
But the problem with that
is when you do it, you tend to raise your placement and cause things to get very tense. Oh. We want more breath to come in at the end. You still have a couple of letters you want to watch out for. Own, shown, shown, known, known. Also watch out for L's. Goal, goal, paw, pole,
R's,
or, core, sore,
Make sure you're not saying ah.
low, law, row, raw. For the O sound, my mouth's going to be a little bit more closed. For the aw sound, my mouth can be a little wider. Let's start with the test. Live, sit, hit. All of those use a sound called the short I sound, but it is commonly confused with the E sound. The very tip of your tongue is going to be down. The middle of your tongue is going to be a little high, and the very back of your tongue is down. And you, as always, want to make sure you're getting enough air flowing through. The sound should sound like eh. If that's still difficult, you can try biting the sides of your tongue very, very gently, so you can hear the difference. Sit, seat, live, leave, hit, heat. There's another problem though. A lot of people confuse the I sound and the sound. Sit, set, hid, head, wrist, rest. If you see a letter I by itself, it almost always makes an I sound.
In fact, the only word I can think of right now that makes an E sound with the letter I is the word pizza.
Combinations that tend to be very difficult with the short I include I plus E, city, pretty, really. This is his hit, quick fix.